Good morning, members of the board. I requested the session to outline our applications and risk following the external investigation that confirmed violations of civil and criminal law. This presentation explains the legal ramifications of failing to report, the benefits of self-disclosure, your duties as directors, and my obligation as Chief Compliance Officer. The outside counsel's findings confirm legal violations, meaning the company now falls under mandatory reporting obligations in multiple regulatory regimes, depending on the conduct. Counsel has already advised that disclosure is legally required. Failure to act promptly increases penalties and exposes the board to personability. The U.S. Federal Sentencing Guidelines identify timely disclosure as a core element of an effective compliance program. The DOJ's corporate enforcement and voluntary self-disclosure policy emphasizes that failure to self-report can be treated as willful concealment. These obligations require swift transparency once misconduct is identified. If we withhold information, regulators often assume intent to conceal. This increases organizational exposure dramatically. Non-disclosure has been interpreted as obstruction. It can also trigger punitive regulatory oversight, deferred prosecution agreements, or corporate monitorships, each costly and operationally disruptive. If we withhold information, regulators often assume intent to conceal. This increases organizational exposure dramatically. Non-disclosure has been interpreted as an obstruction. It can also trigger punitive regulatory oversight, deferred prosecution agreements, or corporate monitorships, each costly and operationally disruptive. Under Invercare and related cases, board members have legal obligation to oversee compliance systems and respond to known violations. Failure to disclose after actual knowledge is a breach of duty. Courts have held directors personally liable when they ignore red flags, which now exist in this case. If the board chooses not to disclose after being advised of legal violations, this may constitute willful blindness or intentional misconduct. Courts have held that directors cannot rely on the business judgment rule when ignoring clear legal mandates. D&O issuers may refuse coverage or willful acts. My professional responsibility is to protect the corporation by ensuring compliance. If the board declines to self-disclose, law provides mechanisms of compliance officers to notify regulators in certain circumstances. I'm required to escalate beyond the company if internal reporting failures could constitute illegal concealment. If the board chooses non-disclosure, I must protect myself and the organization. I would issue a written notice of my recommendation, ensure documentation of dissent, and assess my obligations under mandatory reporting laws. In certain circumstances, resignation or external disclosure may be legally required to avoid criminal exposure. Proactive disclosure, coupled with a strong remediation plan, is a path that minimizes organizational and board-level liability. Regulators look favorably on companies that self-report and demonstrate meaningful corrective actions. Thank you for your time. I strongly recommend that the board authorize immediate self-disclosure to relevant regulators. I'm available to answer any questions.